Abby Chuck, and I am the chair of the YWCA board. And the board, along with the other staff of the YWCA, welcomes you here today. Please enjoy your coffee. I have not yet had a chance to have a cup of coffee, but it turns out that speaking to a room of 200 people wakes you up far better than a cup of coffee ever could. So thank you so much. We know that time is such an important resource in all of our lives, and so we are just so grateful that you've decided to share some of yours with us today to join us this morning. The YWCA Helena's mission is to prevent homelessness, provide safe and supportive housing for women and children, and to provide services to restore hope and self-sufficiency. The YWCA Helena does this through a variety of programs. And these programs this past year have been so successful, due in part to the hard work of the staff at the YWCA, and due in part to the hard work of the people who participate in these programs. One of the programs here is WINGS. WINGS stands for Women Initiating New Growth and Stability. The WINGS program is a residential program where women who are going through a tough spot can come to rest, recover, and begin to build a solid foundation for the future. YWCA Helena is licensed as both a substance use disorder treatment program and a mental health center. And so the women there are able to receive resources through the YWCA. Last year, we housed 34 women, a quarter of whom were women of color, 3/4 of whom were parents. And so that means that there were not just women living in the residence, there were also a number of children, which makes for a very exciting atmosphere. And all of the women who came were at risk of being unhoused. Our integrated services support these women and their families. This program provides the building blocks for women to have a productive, sober, and joyful future. We also have the Caterpillars program, which is the Parenting, Childcare, and Counseling Center. And through that this year, 65 parents received parenting classes, 41 children were provided with childcare, and that includes the children who were living at the residence, but it also includes children in our wider community. And 24 parents were reunited with their children through the resource that are provided through Caterpillars. Together, we have accomplished so much, and with all of your help, we will accomplish so much more. Moving into this next year, there are some issues that we will face, including the rising cost of living. The availability of affordable housing continues to be a problem in Helena and beyond. The access to affordable health care continues, including mental health care, continues to be a problem and is being further restricted. So the YWCA Helena is so important in this community to make sure that our neighbors have a safe place to land. So today, we're asking you to join us. Please join us in fighting for affordable housing, economic security for women, and quality childcare. Please join us in ensuring that the people in our community can have peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. First, we're going to have Mike Jetty, who is going to give us a prayer. Thanks, everyone.
Wahami taki api, hihani waste, yuha chante waste napte chuzapado. Hello, my relatives. I greet all of you with the heartfelt handshake and wish you a good morning. Hihani waste. That's how you say it's a good morning. Hihani waste. So I want you all to say that with me. Hihani waste. Yeah, hihani waste. So it's a good morning today. And member of the Spirit Lake Dakota Nation and a Turtle Mountain Anishinaabe descendant, and I'm honored to offer up a very old prayer song for you today. But before I do that, I want to tell a quick story that's kind of related to this song. In Dakota, we say, ehani, ehani, means a long time ago. There was these two Lakota men, and they're out hiking, and they come across this giant turtle upside down. And they take this turtle, and it takes both of them to flip it right side up. And this turtle starts talking to them. He says, I'm a very ancient spirit. I'm going to grant you men each one wish. And the first Lakota man thinks, and he says, well, I want to be the smartest Lakota man in the world. Turtle says, poof, he's a genius. He asks his friend, what would you like? He looks and he says, well, I'd like to be smarter than the smartest Lakota man in the world. And the turtle says, poof, turns him into a Lakota woman. There you go. But this song I'm going to offer is a prayer. And the words to this song, it's actually one of our original Sundance songs, and it's very, very old, thousands of years old. But the words to this song say, Grandfather, I'm sending my voice around the world. I want my people to live. And, just thank you for all being here today, for, just offering up a good life for all the people that the YWCA, serves. And so just keep that in your mind as I'm offering up this song, and as you send your prayer all around the world, but specifically for the people here in our Helena community. So thank you for all being here, and thank you for the opportunity to offer up a prayer song. So you can stay seated, but this song, it's just a prayer, so just pray in your mind for whatever you need to pray about. But, special prayers for today, and Jen and her crew and all the women she serves. So.
Makasito meya hoye waekte namakuelo ai mitakuye o wanentelo
Wow, mitakoyashi. May you have a good day today. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for your powerful and beautiful words. All right, good morning. Lots of beautiful faces here. My name is Savannah Webb, and I am a former resident and the YWCA Peer Support Specialist. I now am also the new owner of Forget Me Not Flowers in the Lundy Center. Yes, thank you. I invite you to eat breakfast together, family style, as you see there. And today's wonderful meal has been provided by Nosh Cafe. Yes, round of applause for Claire. Claire at Nosh is a generous supporter of the YWCA, and we are so grateful. Montago Coffee provided the caffeine this morning, so thank you to Stephen and Rachel for being a great partner of the YWCA Helena. All right, and once again, my name is Savannah, and you might remember me from the benefit breakfast a few years ago, where I share my story of my battle with substance abuse and overcoming mental health obstacles. The YWCA has always been a safe place from the start. Even to this day, the YWCA supports my family and I on our journey to build our legacy for our children. As you enjoy your meal, please turn your attention to the screen for a special message from our sponsors.
Rise and Shine is a community event bringing individuals together to celebrate and inspire. YWCA Helena would like to thank our generous sponsors.
We are proud to sponsor today's Rise and Shine benefit breakfast. We are also grateful for the team at the YWCA and all of the support they provide to women and children in need of a new, healthier beginning. Thank you.
Pause to recognize the pivotal role YWCA plays in our community. As community members, we witness firsthand their impact. Their mission is crucial, and the successes they achieve are testimony to lives changed for the better. Let's continue to support the YWCA's invaluable work. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Abby Brown, an attorney at Parsons, Bailey & Latimer here in Helena. Parsons is committed to serving its communities, and we are thrilled to be a sponsor of the YWCA Rise and Shine Breakfast this year.
Good morning. We here at Benefits in Helena are thrilled to rise, shine, and support YWCA Helena with you. As a member of our community, I get to see firsthand the work that the staff and supporters do for women and children, such as helping with homelessness, using trauma-informed therapies, addiction treatment, and so much more that is dramatically improving the lives of families across Helena. In my line of work, gastroenterology, we tackle awkward and difficult discussions because it's the only way that healing happens. I appreciate the way the YWCA tackles these tough topics straight on too. Thank you for helping make Helena a better place via your support of our YWCA. The need is great, and I know your generosity will be as well.
Let's join together and give a round of applause to these sponsors and the many others that make
I am proud to be a part of the YWCA success, its mission, and the legacy of Rise and Shine. While living and working at the YWCA Helena, Jennifer Gursky was appointed to Executive Director of the organization. She is a woman of vision, ambition, and compassion. Jennifer Gursky has always been an inspiration to me. Now help me welcome Jennifer Gursky to the stage, the YWCA Executive Director.
I think this is where I stand up and say my annual joke of you all are seated nicely and you're expecting to be here until noon. It still works. Savannah, thanks for coming back and being our MC. There you are. I was like, where did you go? Your story is powerful, and our work is powerful because of the women who choose to dig in and do the work of restoration. Good morning. Thanks for investing your morning learning about the great work being done at YWCA Helena. I'm honored to serve alongside staff that are catalysts of hope. If you're a staff member, will you please raise your hand? Higher. There you go. They all have individual titles, of course, but today we're going to call them catalysts of hope. I am honored to help lead this agency with our amazing board of directors. Work that affects women and children for generations happens in our agency. Our board members are courageously and strategically leading this agency. Board members, will you please stand? Thank you. It is my honor to serve alongside you. I also thank those of you who are sitting in this room and made this event possible. Sponsors like Opportunity Bank, who continue to be our lead sponsor for the Rise and Shine Benefit Breakfast. Thank you for your dedication to the empowerment of women. And our sponsor, MTN News, thank you for making the storytelling of today possible. Community-minded sponsors like Benefis Health Systems, thank you. And to our partners at American Storage, Ascent Bank, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Montana, I remember placing you, so I'm trying to look in your direction, St. Peter's Health, Valley Bank, Parsonsville and Latimer, and Peerview, thank you. Your support helps every dollar raised today to be a direct dollar of support. If you are a sponsor this morning at any level, please raise your hand. Your generosity makes this work happen. I also want to give special thanks to community members that rose to a challenge when we most desperately needed it. For years, our basement has been to the great demise of annual leaking from our front porch in our front building. It has run into mold problems, cement crumbling, and places that just turned out not to be a dignified or safe space to do the programs that you're going to hear about today. I'd like to give a special shout out to Gruber Masonry, who not only heard our call for help to make that porch waterproof, but donated thousands of dollars in labor to make it come under a price that the YWCA could afford. Gruber Masonry is here this morning. Will you please stand? The real-life support from our community helps stories that we're going to hear today happen. I just saw myself on the screen. I would encourage you just to look at my face, because that's not what I look like, right? I'm guessing by your laugh it is. Okay. Restoration. The word rolls at the front of your mouth, hard and somewhat poignant. T's, S's. Restoration. The word itself takes work, and it is an action of returning to something former. It's a returning. YWCA Helena prevents homelessness, provides safe and supportive housing for women and children experiencing homelessness, and provides services that restore hope, self-sufficiency, and happy and healthy lives. What a great mission. Together with YWCAs across the country, we are dedicated to eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. In a moment, you'll hear the story of a woman who's worked hard to restore. Restore what belonged to that 3-year-old little girl who wanted love and safety. Her restoration is an action. It is work as she digs deep into her soul. She will carry a legacy of an empowered woman because of the work that she is doing, and she will restore. I need you to hold on with me for a few minutes because I'm going to nerd out with you. So here's a few things that you need to know. Epigenetic. Yeah, I've practiced that word. Epigenetic. Okay, so I am going to get nerdy with you. This is the study of how behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way that our genes work. If you remember from biology class, genes are like the instruction code, the instruction manual of how you read your DNA. It's the encasing. It's the, you might look like that, but you're going to respond like this. Unlike genetic changes, epigenetic changes can be reversed and rewritten. They don't change your DNA, but they change how your body reads the DNA, how our body reads our code. Still with me? Thank you. It is participatory. So then, what is an epigenetic study? An epigenetic study studies the differences among a population that have experienced extreme physical and psychological stress and trauma, like Holocaust survivors, sons of prisoner of war soldiers, children born to 9/11 survivors, and populations who disproportionately experience adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. Okay, epigenetic studies. Next step is mice. I promise, for those who are thinking, I did not sign up for this at 8:30 a.m., that this does not last long. But here it is. I will promise that I also nixed all the Latin science terms for this morning. All right, mice, not Latin. Isabel Munsey is a researcher in neuroepigenetics at the University of Zurich. That's in Switzerland. She's a researcher known for her work on epigenetic inheritance in relation to childhood trauma. Here's the basics of what her research is about. Okay, step one, mama mouse. Mama mouse has a baby. Baby is taken from mom. Mom is stressed and induced trauma and then returns to baby. Mom is unable to parent because of the stress hormones raging through her body. So, mom is traumatized, now baby is traumatized. Okay, this is in mice. Step two, traumatized baby grows to be an adult and has altered epigenetic code because of the trauma. Baby mouse, when it's an adult, is mated with an untraumatized mom. Okay, this is where you have to stick with me, okay? Baby, who was raised in trauma, now is mated with untraumatized mom. Untraumatized mom has a baby. Dad is removed from the picture so that it's not about the environment that baby is raised in. Untraumatized mom raises baby that has no behavioral trauma and still has a change in his epigenetic codes. Okay. No trauma changes in the whole function of how we read our biological and physiological self. They find epigenetic differences that mimic the dad's for a solid 3 generations. And those are generations that did not experience the trauma. If you want to know more about this, go look up Isabel Munsey in Zurich. I don't have time to reveal all of her studies today. But here's the clincher in her work. In 2016, she published evidence that traumatized mice, now raised in an enriched environment, didn't pass on the symptoms of trauma to their offsprings. Her work said that the 3 generations was not necessary. Mice, get this, mice in luxury 2-story mouse houses, equipped with running wheels, mazes, abundant food, and human interaction. The environment was designed to stimulate their senses and engage more of their brains in play and exploration. So here's the thing. Mice who had therapeutic intervention didn't pass down the epigenetic codes to their children. It was interrupted. It was a therapeutic intervention, which means that the epigenetic change is reversible. It means that we can be restored. We can call into action every molecule, every DNA strand in our body, and be restored. And that, my dear friends, is what YWCA Helena is dreaming about for our community: restoration. We not only operate a licensed substance use recovery program that addresses deep trauma, but we catalyzed parallel behavioral work for children of mothers who are in the process of their own restoration. We are restoring epigenetic codes. We opened a trauma-informed and therapeutic childcare for children who have experienced trauma, experienced out-of-home placements in the foster care system, and live in extremely low-income families. We created systems of care that include things like behavioral health therapy, licensed addiction counseling, case management, peer supports, therapeutic groups, parenting education, SNAP and food prep education, budgeting, licensed childcare, supervised parenting, advocacy for restoration of the family, and honestly, the list goes on. Last month, our team wanted to know the quantifiable impact of our work. We impact an average of 98 souls every single week. 98 unique individuals. We have a 24-room shelter that can house 24 women and about 20 children. And let me tell you, sometimes that house has some wiggles. We have the Caterpillars Parenting Program that creates opportunities for both the public and Wings residents for parenting classes, supervised parenting, and one-on-one parenting coaching. The Caterpillars Clubhouse and New Learning Center Preschool are now licensed for 44 children. We are an agency that says yes at every possible turn, but we have challenges that we in our community must address. And in the few moments I have left, I want to share some of those challenges. Housing. And by housing, I mean the entire continuum, from emergency sheltering to supportive housing to permanency. Last week, I received an email from a woman who wrote, "I'm a 79-year-old homeless woman looking for shelter. Please help." Mid-August, I fielded a call for help from a mom living in her car with her 2-year-old who reported reaching out to several places in the last 4 months. She was worried about her daughter who had witnessed tremendous domestic violence and is exhibiting extreme behaviors. Mom is worried and knows it's because she's been unable to provide safety and stability for her baby. A phone call I answered last week asked for sober living recovery programming. She and her 13-year-old son needed to escape life-threatening family violence. Michelle Zentz, sorry, will you please stand? I just want people to see you, and I apologize if this is, I did not tell you about this. You can have a seat. Michelle Zentz, for those of you who don't know, is the lead in our school district for students who are unsheltered or insecurely housed. Remember last year when I told you that the school reported nearly 400 students were identified as homeless? This is the woman who coordinates that count and coordinates services like Coke drives and the food share kid packs. This year, just 2 weeks into the school, she said that they've identified 118 children who lack secure housing. That's just 2 weeks in. This woman is a hero, and this woman is actually working towards our community restoration. Thank you. Mark Ney, you are not at the table you're supposed to be at. And Teresa must be over there then too. Is Teresa with you? Oh, that stinker RSVP'd. Okay, Mark Ney. Teresa Ortega and Mark Ney are Good Samaritan Ministries. They are the critical community partners in our solution to an emergency shelter. Thank you for being here as a partner. You are a hero in taking steps toward community restoration. Thank you. We need heroes, and we need heroes that can commit themselves to restoration. Mental health care access, challenge number 2. I'm not going to go too wild here because we all know it, the numbers, just like we kind of snickered at housing. We kind of know it. In Montana, based on drug-forced seizures, there's an increase of 52% from last year of fentanyl doses seized from this year to last. Substance use recovery is restoration. In Lewis and Clark County alone, it was reported that nearly 17,000 people were dropped from Medicaid in May and June. Ugh. And right now, numerous women of YWCA Helena have been dropped from coverage. If folks can't get Medicaid, they can't access behavioral and substance use disorder therapy, and that affects their restoration. Therapists are booked out for months, and waiting lists sometimes stretch past the 6-month mark. Licensed and state-monitored recovery centers and programs, as passed in the legislature this year, will significantly help access to trauma-responsive treatments that restore. These are the programs that restore the epigenetic code. And the last prong is childcare. How many of you are parents in this room? All right. Now, how many of you have experienced the dearth of licensed quality childcare? I'm going to assume all of the hands that were just raised are up. Childcare is hard. We don't pay our workers enough, licensing is difficult, and we really don't have a reimbursement method for it. We are working to expand quality and licensed childcare in a way that leads to restoration for families who have experienced trauma and live at extremely low income levels. Our community and state must keep working on accessible and quality childcare for us to not only have an economy that works for us all, but restores the family and our community. These are the three legs that YWCA works at: housing, mental health care and substance use recovery, and childcare. It's what we call the full wraparound service, and it works. Housing, substance use recovery, access to behavioral health care services, and quality daycare. Our work is wraparound because our ultimate goal is restoration. Say it with me: restoration. The word takes work, and so does the actual work. Our big dreams are ones of dignity and peace, justice and freedom. And that is how we all restore our community.
Strangers who were telling me how incredibly sick I was. I had injuries from a terrible fall that I'd taken into a bathtub. And I spent a day by myself not even knowing that happened. I was life-flighted to the hospital, and while I was there, I realized that I was at a point where I needed to find a safe place to regain my sanity and strength, and I knew that place was the YWCA Helena. The WINGS program and the trusted staff and peers have helped me start the healing process of lifelong trauma and 35 years of alcohol abuse and dependency. YWCA not only granted me this big, beautiful, spacious home to do a lot of great healing, but also a very safe, private room where I was able to call it my home. But most of all, I was given the time necessary to do the program without any interruption and to completely give myself to this process. I've spent time in this house and in these rooms doing some very vulnerable work with the ladies that are here, but also there's been a lot of healing and growing and gaining confidence with each other that couldn't have happened anywhere else. What I like about the WINGS program is that while it's built with a structure, we all have separate journeys that we're on and needs that need to be met. And the team here understands that and gathers together behind closed doors and in front of us to help us achieve those goals. My therapist and LEC and peers told me for the first time that I hear you, I believe you, and I'm going to be here for you. And that's something I've never heard from somebody I can trust to actually help me. If YWCA didn't exist and I didn't have the opportunity to come here, I'm truly afraid I might not be here to tell the story.
Almost every woman who walks into the door of the YWCA to participate in the WINGS program has experienced significant trauma. Almost all of them have experienced sexual abuse at some point in their lives, and that contributes to their substance use disorder. Part of what makes Heather's story unique is the way her life experience and her natural ability to self-reflect worked together to basically allow her to be able to see how much trauma has impacted her life. And therefore, as her team of providers, we were able to meet her where she was at and get to those traumas that underlie her substance use disorder more quickly and more effectively. Heather's role at the Caterpillars Clubhouse is food service coordinator, but we lovingly refer to her as the best lunch lady in the land. She serves healthy, nutritious, fun meals to all of the children that we work with and is probably the favorite person in the room. All of the kids that we serve at the Caterpillars Clubhouse have experienced trauma, live in poverty, and may not have had the most nutritious diet growing up. And Heather's able to serve them healthy, nutritious meals, and she serves them with love. Every single kid that we work with, either at the YWCA in the Wings program or at the Clubhouse, absolutely love Heather. She's everyone's favorite person. Heather shows love through her food, and all of the kids feel completely loved. All residents and staff at the YWCA are required to take Circle of Security Parenting, and that's because we're all raising the children that live at the Y and are attending the Clubhouse together. While Heather doesn't have her own children, she did state during this class that she was glad that the children lived at the YWCA because they were able to heal the broken parts in her. And I think that really speaks to why YWCA works.
The best part of my day is when I'm giving the kids their delicious meal and hearing them say, "Thank you, Heather." It really, really fills my heart. I want to take the time to share my gratitude with YWCA, the Wings program, and every single person who makes it possible. I could never have done this by myself. Thank you for your support of the YWCA, the Wings program, and Caterpillars. Without you, none of this would be possible. Thank you.
Wow. All right, so it is my honor to introduce such an amazing, beautiful soul. Let's give a round of applause to Heather Maestas.
Good morning. Oh, that was emotional. Thanks again for coming here and supporting us. I've had many roles in life, and standing here today, I'm going to tell you I'm a recovering alcoholic, a survivor of trauma, and the lunch lady at the Caterpillars Clubhouse. And before I get started, I'd like to ask that we take a moment of silence for anyone still suffering from alcoholism and addiction or struggling with mental health and homelessness, and pray they find their way to recovery. Thank you. Addiction and trauma. Both of these have severely impacted my life. They are so closely related, and often they seem the same, but they require separate forms of treatment. We know that addiction is almost always the outcome of unresolved trauma, and you might find yourself wondering how I could end up so alcoholic when alcohol was always the common denominator in all these terrible things. But that is just how powerful each of them are. In order to tell my story, I have to start at the beginning. My first memory of life was my father molesting me. This was the start of my life, and this was also the start of my trauma. I grew up in a town of 16,000 people in Wyoming. My parents were divorced and recoupled by the time I was 4 years old, and my brother and I were shuffled back and forth between 4 people who absolutely hated each other and still do to this day. Both homes were hardworking, upper middle class, where all of our financial needs were met, vacations were taken, our clothes were nice, and our holidays were extravagant. And both homes were alcoholic. At my dad's home, there was sexual abuse from my dad and physical abuse from him and my stepmother. This was regular for over a decade. Witnessing my sibling be abused was far more traumatizing then experiencing my own abuse. And at my mother's house, I was being hypersexualized by my stepdad and mother, and I was sexually abused by an uncle. Many of you may know a 3rd or 4th grader, so maybe you could imagine how different their life would be if they were experiencing this as their normal. Though inherently it felt wrong, this was my normal, and I had no safe place. Even a nasty custody battle where I was forced to choose homes, I chose my dad's. And that might seem strange to you, but I have learned that it's a classic response to trauma caused by him. I appeared to be a happy girl. I had good grades, I participated in sports and even Girl Scouts. And as a means of coping with this abuse, I learned how to disassociate, and I learned how to escape. I escaped in books, the outdoors, and with friends and music. And because there was always alcohol, I do not remember my first drink, but by age 7, I was sneaking drinks. And my first real drunk would come at age 11 and ended in a sexual abuse. In my teenage years, some really big things happened. My sister was killed in a drunk driving accident just days after her 20th birthday. Shamefully, I was guilty for drinking and driving for nearly 30 years. At age 14, I was a whistleblower. I told my stepmother of my sexual abuse and of the other victims that I was absolutely certain of. Although the police were contacted, back then, all they would do was send my dad to a 28-day treatment and promise never to do it again. And just like that, the case was dismissed. As for me, I was not allowed to tell anyone else, especially my mother. It was all swept under the rug as if it never happened. And we even look better now that my dad was not a drunk. He never abused me again, but I don't know about anybody else. Through junior high, I was binge drinking whenever possible. We were doing legal truck stop speed, and before I knew it, I was a daily pot smoker. This was my new escape. And in high school, I got a car, a fake ID, and a really good job. I went under the radar for quite some time, but eventually I was busted with weed and alcohol, and I was branded the black sheep of my family. I began doing all drugs available to us in the mid-90s: weed, LSD, mushrooms, rave drugs, and meth. And at 18, I had my first abusive boyfriend. At 19, he beat me up, went to jail, and then moved to Pennsylvania. I went to my first treatment where childhood trauma was not addressed. I get out and I take a Greyhound bus straight to Pennsylvania and relapse on alcohol and drugs the very first day I arrived. At age 21, I moved to Las Vegas with my mom, and selfishly I partied, staying out all day and night. I joke that I didn't sleep for 4 years because in a 24-hour city, there's 24-hour drinking. I was already a daily drinker and would be until my first attempt to quit at age 44. So while the wild life seemed good and party life was fun, there were also some bad experiences. I totaled my car drinking and driving and was not questioned, so luckily didn't pay a fine. I did lose my car. I also lost a cousin due to an overdose in 2004 at the beginning of the opioid epidemic. I was also raped by a roommate, which up until very recently I could even admit was rape. And then there were the freight trains. Triggering things and events would bring me back to my childhood abuse and would paralyze me, sometimes for days at a time. I would work this out by drinking with friends, and while this was not therapy, I am very thankful for those friends. These freight trains were what I now know to be PTSD, and with each episode, suicidal ideation would increase. At age 24, I told my mom about my dad and uncle's abuse and watched her heart break right in front of me. But to my disappointment, I would once again be asked to keep this a secret because news like this could kill my grandmother, who was 64 at the time. Meanwhile, any attempt to belong in my dad's world would re-traumatize me. It was clear by their actions that the pain I showed was too obvious for them to endure. And when I got drunk, it made it easier for them and bearable for me. It was the ultimate case of gaslighting. It was as if nothing happened and I was the problem. I began to think that maybe it was me, and I questioned my own sanity. It has been 16 years since I talked to my dad or stepmother. In my mid-20s, Las Vegas's Lady Luck would strike, and I got a job at a brand new company, and little did I know it would be the beginning of an 18-year career. The people became family to me, and the business exploded into a well-known franchise. I was fortunate enough to advance right along with them, yet I found myself drinking all the time, often on the job, and by then, morning drinking was my new crutch. I also met my husband. He loved adventure and drinking just as much as I did, and we really did have the time of our lives. And we were both highly functioning alcoholics. I had a top-level corporate job and was traveling all over the country opening locations. Drinking also became a full-time job. Desperately planning my next drink, trying not to get too drunk, trying not to drink when I shouldn't, and balancing hangovers with the next morning drink. I pulled it off, but I absolutely know there were people who suspected my problem and saw my alcoholic behavior. And in 2012, I got an amazing opportunity to move to Huntington Beach and open my own franchise as an operating partner. It was absolutely awesome. In no time, I was part of the community with award-winning sales and service. It was there that I dove into service work. Ironically, I belonged to an organization that supported the lives of women and girls. I served on the board and put fundraisers together just like this one, sitting right where you are. I would hear the stories of women that sounded so much like my childhood story of trauma, and through alcoholic eyes, I could see myself. By 2017, sadly, alcohol and the problems that alcohol causes between two alcoholics would be the demise of my marriage. He still remains in my life, and he is a huge supporter in my success, and I'm still very close to his family. In addition to that separation, I also chose to get out of the business and cash in my ownership. This meant I had enough money to set me up for the next chapter. By escaping reality, I told myself that what I needed was to seek freedom. I bought an RV and off I went with my 3 dogs. The money was pouring out of my bank account just as fast as it was pouring down my throat. My alcoholism was getting so bad, I could not go even 2 hours without a drink, and I was even hospitalized 3 times. Not long into this adventure, I met a very abusive man. I was abused physically, verbally, financially, and mentally. Ashamed and unable to break away, I stayed with him. I was trauma bonded. We ended up in North Dakota, and where he convinced me to go to treatment. I agreed to go, and in doing so, this would begin the starting place of my recovery journey, and it would also start the beginning of homelessness. While in treatment, he sold my RV, which was my home. And when I got out and relapsed immediately, he kicked me out of the apartment with the money he got. I ended up in a 90-day treatment, but I fear that I won't stay sober when I leave, so I started looking for sober living. And like a diamond in the rough, there was the YWCA of Helena, and I got accepted. When I arrived, I remembered feeling like the house was a big hug and the people in it were safe. What I did not realize was I was in treatment, and I stayed only 2 months, sadly, to repeat the same pattern as when I was 19 years old. I returned to the abusive boyfriend, and within 2 months, I was kicked out again. I moved in with people I didn't know, working a job I hated, and completely dependent on alcohol again. Absolutely horrified, riddled with shame, I don't ask a single person for help. But to no surprise, my situation got worse. I wrecked my car again while drinking and driving, and I'm fired from the job. What a nightmare. But when I closed my eyes, I could see the YWCA, and I just knew I should have never left. I told my only friend about the YWCA, and she helped me reapply. Apparently, the staff were all relieved to know that I was still alive. They agreed to let me come back, and I agreed to safely detox first. It would be irresponsible of me it would be irresponsible for me if I didn't tell you how dangerous it can be to detox without medical help. But that's just what I did. Trying to detox and unknowingly sick with COVID, I blacked out and fell into the bathtub. This is the story you saw in the video. My body was badly injured and I was internally ill from alcoholism. This hospital stay was absolutely terrifying. So, after 35 years of heavy alcohol dependency and years of unresolved trauma topped with recent trauma, I arrived here in really bad shape. And there they were, the people who loved me, arms open, and welcoming me back. I am mentally clouded, I'm tired, and I'm scared, and I'm bodily injured. I am spiritually flatlined. My eyes were full of disparity and fear, but this time I'm here to stay, and I stay true to my end of the deal. Working together, the team helped me understand trauma and addiction, and we took a very close, sober look at my experience with both. They supported me as I braved the healing process and difficulties of getting sober by always teaching self-compassion first. With the help of the YWCA and all the beautiful women and children who live there, and the amazing community of Helena, I have regained my health. My thoughts are clear, there's light in my eyes, and there's hope in my heart. And most of all, I have finally learned how to access a God and live in faith and gratitude. We have created a path to recovery, and I've started healing the innocent little girl, the hurt teenager, and the scared adult that is me. I finally have a true understanding that I will repeat what I do not repair. So by one day at a time, I have put together 1 year and 2 days of sobriety. Thank you. Thank you. That seems unreal. Seems very unreal to me. So, it is time that I hold my head higher than my heart. I come out of hiding, and I brave a life I finally believe that I deserve. I will never forget the YWCA and the people like you who have saved my life. Thank you for making the YWCA possible. From all of us at the YWCA, we thank you. I thank you, and thank you.
Let's give it up for Heather. Wow. What a powerful and inspirational story. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Heather, for being so brave. And thank you for sharing your story with us. You just kind of need a second after that, don't you? Let's take a breath. All right. Now I would like to welcome Sarah Clergett to the stage.
So I'm here to tell you a heartwarming story about human trafficking. And I'm not being sarcastic. Stay with me. Assalamu alaikum. That means peace be with you. And it's a traditional greeting in Islam. The response is wa alaikum assalam. And you have to say it with me. Wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. In Islam, this means more than just a greeting. It's an I see you. My heart is in the same place as yours. We are sisters, and we are in this together. It's an acknowledgement of connection and appreciation that goes both ways. I met Bibi because she needed to hear Assalamu alaikum. I am privileged to run in what one friend called the Girl Power Circles of Helena. And so when the YWCA needed help finding a Muslim connection for Bibi, the Friend Network activated and they called me asking about a Muslim prayer group in Helena. Well, there isn't one. So when they told me about Bibi, I offered to come and pray with her. I only know a little bit about Bibi's history. The staff told me she was a refugee, a victim of human trafficking from far west Africa. She had arrived on a bus the night before and was exhausted. After we got to know each other, she told me about the path that had led her to Helena. She was trafficked through Africa, then brought to Brazil, then Colombia, then Mexico, where she finally sought asylum, and then by herself traveled to San Diego and Missoula, and then on a bus to Helena. She was on an incredible journey, following in the footsteps of her sister, who had escaped to Canada, and was, if Bibi could make it to her, waiting for her at the Canadian border to meet her in a week. Bibi had the clothes on her back, and it reminded me a little bit of the Underground Railroad. She was running toward freedom, and she knew that the Helena YWCA was a safe step on her journey. I bought lunch, and I brought it over to have a meal with her, which is another tradition in Islam. When I saw her, I said, "Salam alaikum," and she said, "Wa alaikum as-salam," and she gave me the biggest hug. She was looking through clothes that the YWCA had given her when I got there, and she talked to me as we had a meal and showed me pictures on the phone which the YWCA had also provided her. Pictures of Muslim speakers she likes, songs, and food in Africa. At the end of the meal, she gave me one of these little stretchy bracelets that she was wearing. In Islam, gifts are a big part of connection, and I could tell that she wanted to give me something. But boy, guys, when you get a gift from somebody like Bibi, that is humbling. We texted over the next few days, and a lot of what she shared was about food, so I offered to take her to the grocery store and let her cook at my kitchen at my home. I brought my daughter, and the three of us went to Vans and bought all the plantains they had. And she brought everything back to my house, and we had a ball as she taught me how to make banana cakes, which I would have called plantain fritters. We talked a lot about Africa, and she was so wonderful to be around. I learned things about cooking in Africa, and I learned about songs, and she showed me pictures of markets. She was fun and sweet and hopeful, despite everything. She gave my daughter another bracelet, and then left one for my son who wasn't there at the end. I gave her some prayer clothes and hijabs, and then packed up enough groceries for her to make banana cakes for herself and all of the ladies at YWCA, and she was very excited to get to do that. We texted a bit over the next few days as she prepared to meet her sister, and she was so relieved that the YWCA was taking care of everything. YWCA staff drove her to the border when the time was right, and my heart was in my throat all that day, praying for her. Then, that night, Joelle, staff member, texted me and said that Bibi had made it to her sister and to her freedom. I just started crying happy tears, and then immediately posted on Facebook and told everyone to go donate to the YWCA, because I had just seen them perform something miraculous and beautiful. And I am so thankful to have gotten to meet BB and to watch the YWCA create a magical, happy ending, or really, at the age of 18, a new beginning to her incredible journey that led her to Helena and eventually to Canada and freedom and her family. This morning you've heard YWCA Helena's impact on our community and the impact on the women, children, and families that they serve. It's now my privilege to ask you to make a financial investment in our ongoing success. Your gift today is truly an investment. It's an investment in our neighbors and in our community to build a strong foundation and to ensure that our programs continue and to provide a stable future for the YWCA Helena. Today, I am asking you to join me in supporting the incredible work of the YWCA. You can do this by joining the Circle of Change, marking you as a leadership donor in the Circle of Change as a leadership donor at the YWCA Helena and stamping your belief in this mission that we accomplish together. Your generosity will enable us to provide childcare services for working parents and ensuring that no family must choose between earning a living and caring for their children. Your support will allow us to continue to provide wraparound care, as they did for Heather and BB, and an array of services designed to support women, parents, and families. So I'd like to ask the table captains to take out your orange envelopes and pass out the pledge cards. So, starting at the top of the card, the Circle of Change pledge level names are meant to give you a sense of what your contributions can actually do. At the Changemaker level, your 5-year gift has the power to stabilize an entire family. A gift at this level is $10,000 per year and allows one woman and her children to live at the YWCA for an entire year. A Changemaker restores hope. The next level of giving in the Circle of Change is a pledge of $5,000 each year for 5 years. This is our Peacemaker level because $5,000 pays for critical therapeutic interventions for children. A Peacemaker restores family. The next level of giving is in the Circle of Change is a pledge of $1,000 each year for 5 years. We call this our visionary level because $1,000 helps pay for vital services like childcare and counseling that helps women create a new vision for their lives. If you make the decision to join me today as a member of the Circle of Change, my personal thanks for your generous support. You've decided to be part of the difference in someone's life. Although I started by introducing the Circle of Change, we know and respect that you may prefer to give at a different level. In this section of the form, please tell us how much you would like to give and at what frequency, monthly, quarterly, yearly. And please know that for any giving level, you can always break your contribution into monthly payments. So for instance, a $500 annual gift is $42 a month to make the kind of differences you've heard about today. This will provide transportation and rental support to move women on to the next stage of their independence. We truly appreciate whatever level of support you can provide and ask you to consider making the first payment on your pledge today. Perhaps you'd like to consider a gift of stock, pledge a payment from your donor advised fund, or something else. Please check the box that says, please contact me to fulfill my contribution. Someone will give you a call to discuss opportunities to financially partner with the YWCA. I know that many of you are still writing, but if I could have your attention here for just one moment, it's really important that you hear what I have to say. Whatever gift you have chosen to give, you have chosen today to make a donation of monthly or annually, a Circle of Change member, or other gifts to discuss. And we sincerely thank each and every one of you on behalf of the women and children we serve and whose life you're changing. Women like Heather and Bibi. I'll give you some time now to fill out your cards. When you're finished, please pass your envelopes back to your table captains. And thank you. Jen, could you join me in sharing gratitude and wrapping up this powerful morning?
Thanks, Sarah. And thank you, Mike, for the beautiful prayer song this morning. Thank you, Savannah, for coming back and sharing your victory with us. And Heather, thanks for sharing your story of restoration. Yeah, let's do that. That feels right. So today, as you're filling out your cards, please continue. Your information is actually how we give you your tax receipt and our gratitude. As you fill it out, put it in the envelope and pass it back to your table captain. Table captain, please put those in the orange envelope. Here's what would be a super big bummer. Yeah, listen. Super big bummer is if you walked out of these doors and forgot to drop off your pledge card and your orange folder at the table. So here's what I'm gonna, because sometimes you get bustling and you're talking and you're like, yeah, I haven't seen you for ages since the last breakfast. And then you find your pledge card in your car. And that's a big bummer for me, and it's a really big bummer for you, because then you don't get a partner. So drop those off. Okay. Table captains, make sure that these orange folders, this is why we do this, big bright orange folders, get back to the table in the back. Folks, can you raise your hand where you're supposed to drop it off? I am immensely grateful for all of you this morning. It was really fun looking through all the names and telling people where they were going to sit at the tables. I wanted everybody in this little close circle right here. It was hard as Kelly and I decided who would go where, and I'm like, no, but let's put them here because you guys are all friends. The other thing I was really excited to see is that table captains, you did a great job. There were a lot of folks on our list who have never been introduced to the work of the YWCA. If this is your first breakfast or introduction to the Y, will you please raise your hand? Yeah. I part you with this: restoration. It is work. It is a verb. It's more of a process than any one of us can understand. Restoration sometimes means sanding off the rust, getting elbow deep and repairing sections that need to be repaired before you can put on that beautiful lacquer of a restored. We can be restored because the science says that our epigenetic codes can be restored. That we get to walk around in a world as a person who has made whole. So this morning I want to thank each and every one of you. It's really hard to make eye contact with 600 people. But I deeply thank you for being here and learning and sharing your generosity of spirit and of restoration. Go in peace.